Hello, guys, and welcome back to another interview. As you can see, I am joined by Luzuh, and we're going to talk a little bit about Tier 2, or I guess the up-and-comers in Valorant. Luzuh, you good? You happy? You doing well?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you. Just come off of the win like a couple of days against Apex, so just getting ready for playoffs now. So yeah, I'm doing good.
So I kind of want to just move straight into things, because I want to sort of, I guess, educate people alongside you about the Tier 2 of Valorant and how everything's going. So I guess looking a little bit at how things were last year and now talking about the sort of changes that we've had going into this year, what would you say the major differences are between like the build up trying to get maybe towards tier 1 and from last year until now?
I mean, I think from when I was playing the DAC splits last year, obviously the end goal was still the same. Obviously back then it was VCT in comparison to it now being like franchising. But I mean, obviously in DAC when I was playing split one and split two, our goal was like still to qualify to VCT. Obviously, I think the stakes have been upped a bit now, obviously with the changes to the system and stuff. But everything is somewhat the same with the addition of now like the Ascension tournament, which is now like a LAN and stuff. Before it was just like an online, stage that everyone had to play, but yeah, I think it's basically the same on how you get there, but the stakes have just changed like pretty dramatically. So
So I one of the questions I kind of wanted to ask are what are your opinions of the Ascension format in general? Because I think for people at home, it can be quite exciting. Like you have the leagues that sort of funnel into this big qualifying tournament, an opportunity for sort of teams to get their way into what is now the big VCT league, where the money is, where the big tournaments are. But from you as a player, having to sort of fight your way through that, what do you think of Ascension?
I mean, I think like obviously Ascension is like an amazing thing. Like when I first heard about the franchising, I was really worried that wouldn't be like a path from semi-pro to like that level of like franchising. But in general, like, I think the way that it's being done is good. Like
Mm,
if I had to like have an improvement though, I would say that like I think that with how NA is kind of doing it, where there's like a league of the best of like the people that didn't make the franchising. I think
yeah.
if we had a similar thing in EU where we'd have like a league above the VRLs that which is just below the franchising. So I think that it would be better in general just having like the top 10 to 12 European teams that aren't quite in franchising playing each other week on week, like week in week out. I think that that would have like some more interesting games more often because I think in some of
Okay.
like the VRL, some of the VRLs that we have, there's a couple of good teams and then some teams that aren't as great, so it doesn't make as good of like a viewing experience. And as a player, right, it's always a lot more fun to be playing like competitive games all the time. So
So I guess if I was going to make a comparison, both of us come from CS. So I
yeah,
guess you're sort of defining like a Mountain Dew League style thing,
yeah,
where it's like all the other leagues funnel through, then you get the Mountain Dew League, and that's how you qualify to Pro League. Like that was always the way it was done. So I'm guessing something like that.
yeah, for sure. Like when I played MDL and CS, like it was always like really fun. Being on the cusp of tier one, well, pro league at the time, getting up to there and like grinding your way through. Like I think obviously the VRLs are really good for like grassroots and bringing up talent and stuff like that. But I think like a
Yeah.
stage above that to funnel into the franchising would just be like a lot more fun to play and watch. Like in my opinion, so.
With the sort of moving on from that, because I think it kind of almost touches on this because of it's another change that's come through. So one thing that kind of made things a little bit more regional was the rule change. And one of the major rule changes, which I think probably did mean one of the reasons you moved away from DAC, is that now teams, I think, it's have to have 3 starters that are from a specific region. Was this a rule change that you'd like to see, or was it one that you kind of sat there going, okay, I kind of wish I could still play more easily being an import?
I mean, I think they've tried to somewhat like negate that because they have like the LTR system. So
Yes.
obviously for the first two splits, I think we're seeing quite a different set of leagues to what we might see in like a year's time, for example. Because obviously last year when I was playing in DAC, um, you still needed German players in the team, but we managed to only play with one German player. And I think a lot of other teams kind of did like a similar thing. I think obviously dependent on the region, some are a lot stronger than others. And I
Yeah.
think that it's kind of shifted where the strongest regions are because I think like last when I was playing in the DAC league, I think at the time like the French league and the Spanish league were kind of the best two to be in terms of like level of play and that kind of stuff. And I think that with this shift, it's kind of moved where a lot of the competitive regions are. Like I'd say right now, with how the current system is, a lot of people would say that, the Turkish Polaris and the French league are like the top three by like a decent margin. Obviously, there's very
Mm.
good teams in the other leagues, but there's not as many of them. You have like Ascend and Enterprise in East, but apart from like those two, a lot of the other teams are like a lot lower
Yeah, I get you.
levels to some of the other regions. So yeah.
So you sort of we touched on this a little bit, but like as said, you were in the DAC League last year. You're now in Polaris this year. One of the things I wanted to ask is, what are the major differences between the two? And is there anything maybe you'd steal from the DAC League that you think they're doing exceptionally well and would like to have it in Polaris as an addition?
Yeah, I mean, like when I was in DAC League, I mean, apart from the fact that I couldn't understand the language, whenever I was gonna watch back the games and stuff, like I always knew that there would be, like they were great at casting the games. There was like a lot of social media content. If someone had a crazy round, they'd be out on Twitter. It would be all over Twitter. Everyone's kind of seeing it, and just in general, like the production was like really good with that. And I think like I would love to see more of that in Polaris, like more content on like Twitter and stuff when people have crazy rounds and stuff like that. But I think like with the differences, like I think it's kind of hard that I'm comparing how Dak felt like as a player back then to how it
Yeah.
would now, because of the shift that I mentioned like earlier of where the kind of stronger teams have gone. Because I think like when I was playing Dak, I felt like it was a bit more of a tight league than it is now. Because at the time it was like us, Focus, who eventually made us as in Mouse when I was in Mouse back
Yeah.
in the day. Focus, who obviously ended up making VCT, and then there was like Wave at the time, which were like a good team, and then there was also like the underdogs, kind of like Angry Titans and people like that were kind of like they were fighting to get into playoffs like, all the time. And I think with like Polaris now, because of the shift with like the LTR rules and needing 3 people from that region, I think the difference that I felt from playing in DAC to now, which might be unfair because of obviously the system changing, Polaris kind of feels no game is free. Every game you went into,
Mm.
everyone is at a good standard in Polaris, and I think that that is kind of, down to the fact that a lot of the talent has moved around because of the new rules and that kind of stuff. But like with the German league, some of the games, they weren't free, but you didn't have to go into it with your A game to win it. And I felt like with Polaris, like if you don't turn up on the day, you can lose to any of these teams in Polaris, and that's like my main difference. That it felt like as a player, you know.
Well, from my perspective, at least, doing the watch parties has definitely been fun to watch because you go into some games and you go, this team's got it down to a T, and then it really can go either way. Now, one of the other things about Tier 2 that I think a lot of people are starting to notice is the topic of investment in the scene, because your team kind of sits there right at the top of the league. You've managed to beat out Apex, I think, shocking many, especially coming in as a free agent team. One of the things I want to ask is, like, have there been offers? Have people been making moves to try and sign Le Petits Bouffons? Because I'll be honest, from my perspective at this stage, the fact that you're not signed is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, first off, hashtag sign the clowns, get it trending. We need to have that on Twitter everywhere. I think like with the changes to the system in general, I think a lot of the orgs at the start were pretty hesitant to get
Okay.
in, kind of blindly entering the leagues, not knowing who's going to be good and all these type of things. And obviously, with the way the point system works, you need to have a good performance in Split One to have a shot at the Ascension tournament.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the orgs were sat waiting because at the start of the season, we had a good start. I think we were 2-0 and then 3-0, and then we lost to HSDIR. And then from that point, we've won like every other game. So there's been more org interest coming in after each kind of win that we're getting, and people starting to believe that we are a team that can make Ascension. Obviously, we've known that the entire time, but we had to show that, I think, for like orgs to
Yeah.
be interested in us. And yeah, we are getting org interest now. So we just got to keep doing what we're doing. I think a lot of people are especially shocked because we are lacking a lot of things that other teams have. Like the boot camps and just in general the ability to be able to play without the stress of like money and stuff like that. Like obviously we're all playing full time. We're not getting salaried at all, and we don't have any kind of support. Obviously, we have Matty, our coach, that joined like right at the start of the season. But I mean, I think that we just lack what a lot of the other teams have, and when we get that, it's going to be even better. And luckily, with our performances and stuff, we're getting some interest. So hopefully, you'll see us sign soon.
That's sort of one of the things that leads me on a little bit, is like, especially with the Tier 2 at the moment, does it almost feel like the only teams that are kind of getting those opportunities are the ones that people sort of believed in to win Ascension? Like, it seems like with every team, there's obviously that goal to get there, but is it necessarily that you almost have to be looking like you're going to get there, or orgs will just go, well, I'm not going to sign just for the tier 2?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very dependent on the VRL that you're in. I think like the Polaris is by far the most like the league with by far the most unsigned teams. In a lot of the other leagues, we're seeing, I'm pretty sure in almost every league, apart from maybe 1 to 2 teams in each other league, everyone is signed.
Yeah.
So I think it is coming down to, what league you're in and what the org wants of you. And obviously where your team's kind of goals lie. Like, obviously for our team, we're built of like a tier 1, some players from tier 1 and players that were on the cusp of tier 2. And our goal has been from the start to make this team to be a franchise qualifying team. We want to win the Ascension tournament. And I think, like, I don't know, for Polaris, it does seem to be like the case from what you said. I think that with Polaris, a lot of the orgs are only wanting the teams that are looking like they're qualifying. I mean, today, even on Twitter, I've seen the disbandment of Hukars who have been in Polaris since, I'm pretty sure it's inception. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think the team name is a bit like they're being rebuilt, right? I just want, because the word disband makes it sound like they're gone, but I think they are trying to make a comeback. But I think like basically each individual player is open to offers. I think that's the way it's looking.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just kind of crazy, seeing an org, a team that's been in from the start and has been looking for an org from the start. So I would be like agreeing with what you're saying. It seems like the orgs, especially in Polaris, are focused on the teams that seem like they're going to qualify to the Ascension tournament.
So I now want to talk a bit more about the team in general, because I think it's quite it's a team that I think for me at least, pretty much knowing every single player on the roster to some degree, like seeing them either in previous games or seeing them on previous big time rosters, I want to sort of look at this squad and go like, do you feel like this is the best squad you've been a part of? Because honestly, like, Mal's obviously had the sort of finances to build something, but you guys coming together, at least in my opinion, kind of looks like a better team.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that this probably is like the best team in Valorant, especially that I've been in. And I think just, the team was built because we've all known each other for years. All of us know what to expect of each other. The roles, they seem to fit on paper. Everything was looking like, why not do this? Obviously, originally we had Brody, who was part of R5 and then ended up joining Ascend. And we kind of ended up just replacing Brody with Vong, who kind of just took Brody's roles. We've kind of shifted like the IGL kind of duties. Like a lot of Ross is like the in-game leader of our team now. I would say we have like a lot of a bit of a different dynamic to some teams that would have, I guess, because we have a lot of people on the team that are very communicative. We talk a lot. We help with Russ's ideas. I'll call rounds. Russ will call a lot of rounds. Everyone kind of calls, obviously, but Russ is like the IGL, and that was our main shift, I guess, with the change from bringing Brody. I mean, losing Brody to then bringing in Vong. Russ took that on, himself, and with Mao's, like, I think on paper the team was like really good, right? Like there was Alorante, who was hyped up to be the German king and everything like that, and obviously it was then me and Cryptix. Obviously Cryptix was also from Liquid, so like another highly experienced team, and obviously it was just Mems and then a Millworm resident across both seasons. I think with this team, maybe it's because we're 4 British people, but I think we just get each other and we just know how to react to certain situations and how to argue and all those kind of things. And like for me specifically, like I've been playing like so much better in this team, and I kind of feel more like how I was in CS. I'm getting confidence more and more each week that we play. And in MAU's, like my confidence was like very low, and I kind of didn't play how I thought I should play and all that kind of stuff. And when you're especially on like the AWP role, you can't be doubting what you're doing. And in this team, I know that everyone has full faith in what I'm doing, and I think we're showing that we're a contender for the Ascension tournament. So
yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I saw you. I think it was your chamber on Attack of Fracture, one of the first weeks, and I was like, okay, I think the Luzuh that told me at the beginning of the game that he's dropping 40 in scrims has come back to the forefront of.
Okay, I knew you were gonna bring that one up. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, you're 100% right. Like, I think even when I watch my own games back, like I can see the difference. When I was used to watch back my mouse games, I'd be like, why am I not? Why am I doing that? Why am I not doing this? Whereas in this game, this team, sorry, like my confidence is coming back. Like I'm still not to I'm not at the point where I want to be, but I can feel myself, being how I feel like I should be. And I'm getting more and more confidence. And I think that, a lot of people doubted me. I think, coming with the making of this team, we have like Link and Russ, the two tier one players that have played in like Guild and Liquid, and
Yeah.
they've been at the top. And obviously, like Cray also was the same with like Mad Lions. Like they won the French. They came second in the French VRL, but they were a top team under Mad
They won
Lions.
the regular season, right? I think they just
Yeah,
lost in the actual playoff
but
stage.
yeah, and like the old like Ascension thing, and then obviously
Yeah.
with Vong, like he also played in VCT. So like I think a lot of people doubted me in this lineup, and that maybe it should have been someone else. But from how I've been playing and how I know that I'm progressing, like I'm playing a lot better, and we're performing. So I'm just happy with how everything's going so far.
Well, I think ACS. I think you might be number 2 in the entire league. So I think you're doing all right. I think you're doing all right. So this is a question just more for me, maybe a couple of other people. 4 Brits, a Norwegian, and a Danish coach come together and make a team with a French name. Why?
Yeah, that's a good one. So honestly, we have our team is not creative at all when it comes to this kind of stuff. We literally sat there. We sat there for like 10 minutes, listing off all these names. They were either really cringe or just things that you wouldn't want as a team name at all. Won't say what they
Okay.
are, but there was bad suggestions, really bad suggestions. So I think it was Brody or Cray said that their old manager in 10 Star used to call them little clowns, and
Okay.
it ended up being a thing where he would say Le Petits Bouffons. So we couldn't decide, and I think Brody literally was just like, honestly, fuck this, and he just went, we're just doing Le Petits Bouffons. I can't even say the name, so there we go. but yeah, so we've gone for LPB, but I mean, it was just one of those where it just happened, like, and we even said like a couple of weeks ago, should we change it because we're a full British team with a Norwegian and we have a French name. Surely, like, it's not the best thing to do, but we just didn't change it and it's stuck now. So we've got the hashtag sign the clowns, and yeah, that's basically why.
You know what? Sometimes names like that can work. Summon, it worked for them. Like I'm hoping it'll work for you guys. So I got a couple more questions. Now, one of them is just more about pressure because you're up against teams. You've sort of mentioned it. There's a couple of signed teams, but the signed teams in your division are probably 2 of the bigger orgs in the entirety of the whole of the sort of VCL league. You've got the likes of course, Apex and, of course, Focus. Do you find that, like, you almost playing sort of to get yourself an org, do you find that as more pressure? Because obviously, I think you've already mentioned you've got tier 1 players that could easily be picked apart. Or do you find it like, okay, the pressure is on them because they're in these orgs, and if we can beat them, it almost takes away the point of them being there in the first place?
I think honestly that when we made this team and we qualified to Polaris, at the start of it, it's just like we're not stressing about an org. We know we're gonna do well, and we know an org's gonna come, and that was kind of like our attitude. We were literally saying, if we perform how we know that we can, there's not a chance we don't get signed. We're gonna be one of the best teams, and we're gonna be a contender for the Ascension tournament, and it would come. And I feel like honestly, I mean, maybe it's just because we're all like very experienced in different ways, but we all have a lot of experience, whether that's like from the combination of CS and Valorant experience, and then for some of us like just the Valorant experience.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like it's doing anything other than add more pressure for the other teams, because a lot of these other teams, like they are from also like tier 1 teams, like the Apex core are like 3 ex Fnatic players, and with the Apex or signing them, they've got boot camps, they're a full-time salaried team, they have like 3 coaches, like they have everything they need to succeed. And for us, I think that when we're playing against them, we know that they also believe that they need to win and they want to get to the same place that we want to get to. So for us, I don't think it's any different. Like when we go into these games, we know if we play how we can, then we should win these games. And that's kind of what we've been doing. I think for the other teams, maybe it affects them more, but playing against a team that has a lot less facilities and a lot less things given to us, we're kind of doing very well for what we've got. So I think for us, it's not very different, but for them, maybe it's adding pressure for them.
That's fair. No, I agree. You guys definitely are doing very well. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure, Luzuh. Now, I believe you're going to be kicking off your playoffs early next week, so I just want to give you a chance to say, like, maybe to potential orgs or maybe to the fans, just like give a message out there of like, well, be it to do with signing the clowns or whatever you like.
Yeah, I would just say like thanks for everyone in the Twitch chats, on Twitter, social media in general that have been helping us with the hashtag sign the clowns. Like, we appreciate it. Hopefully we won't need to be using that hashtag for much longer because we can get an organization. But apart from that, I would just like to say like an additional thank you to like Apex. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the content piece that me and
Yes.
Vong did with Apex. And, it's great from them to get some extra content out of us. Obviously just helping expose the league a bit more. And yeah, just for everyone that's been supporting, thanks and sign the clowns.